For decades, engineers have been trying to create robots that look and act human. Now, rapid advances in artificial intelligence are taking humanoids from the lab to the factory floor. As fears grow that AI will displace workers, a global race is underway.
You didn't miss the moment robots took over. It never made headlines, no viral videos, no dramatic reveal. But factories, banks, governments, even courtrooms are already running on decisions no human ever made.
I remain extremely excited about where we are in the history of robotics, but we see that there's so much more that we can do as well.
Machines that write rules, fire workers, reroute billions, and sentence people without ever blinking. What's more terrifying? This isn't science fiction. It's already deployed. And by the time you realize what's changed, it might be too late to go back.
And more companies seeking to distinguish themselves from the army of humanoid robots marching into the future.
The moment automation quietly took control, there was no countdown, no press conference declaring a new era. The shift happened quietly, almost politely, while most people were still arguing about whether artificial intelligence was ready. It turns out the argument was already obsolete. Automation didn't ask for permission. It simply showed up to work and stayed there. By the end of 2024, multiple countries had already crossed a line that historians will likely mark as irreversible. Robots and AI systems stopped being tools that assist humans and became systems that replace entire decision loops. That distinction matters. A machine that follows instructions is different from a machine that decides when to act, when to stop, and how to adapt without a human approving each step. In manufacturing alone, this shift is visible in numbers, not hype. Fully autonomous humanoid robots are now operating inside live factories, not test floors, performing assembly, inspection, logistics, and material handling continuously. These robots do not clock in. They do not wait for instructions. They plan tasks internally, detect faults before they escalate, and adjust workflows in real time. One widely cited fun fact among engineers is that some of these systems now outperform experienced human teams not because they are faster, but because they never forget a single micro error. Every mistake becomes data. Every correction improves the next cycle. A popular theory circulating among industrial analysts is that this is why companies stopped advertising automation breakthroughs loudly. The competitive advantage is too large. Once a factory crosses the threshold where output depends more on algorithms than labor availability, costs stabilize in ways competitors can't easily match. The factory becomes predictable. Investors love predictable. But it doesn't stop at factories. Logistics hubs now use AI systems that dynamically reroute goods based on weather, port congestion, and geopolitical disruptions without waiting for managers to intervene. Some ports process thousands of containers using scheduling algorithms that update every few seconds. A lesser-known but fascinating detail is that many of these systems were originally trained on traffic flow simulations from video games and urban planning models. The most unsettling part is not speed or efficiency. It's invisibility. These systems do not look dramatic. No glowing red eyes, no humanoid uprising. Just quieter buildings, fewer people, and machines making decisions that used to belong exclusively to human judgment. And here's the theory that keeps coming up in expert circles. Once societies become dependent on systems that optimize themselves faster than humans can understand them, reversing course may not be economically possible, even if we wanted to. The rise of invisible algorithms that rule markets. If the factories are where automation took over the body of modern civilization,
when you try to instill human-like intelligence, human-like manipulation skills into machines, it's just very, very hard to do.
the financial sector is where it quietly hijacked the brain. Most people assume Wall Street is still run by men in suits yelling into phones. It's not. The world's largest investment decisions are now being made by algorithms, many of which are no longer directly understood by the humans who created them. Let's talk about BlackRock, the largest asset manager on the planet. It controls over $10 trillion. Yes, trillion. And it doesn't rely on human analysts alone. Instead, it runs on a proprietary AI system called Aladdin, Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. Here's the insane part. Aladdin monitors over 30,000 investment portfolios every second, running real-time simulations, predicting global risks, and automatically adjusting positions for hundreds of the world's biggest banks, insurance firms, and governments. That means if a natural disaster hits Tokyo, a coup erupts in Nigeria, or a semiconductor shortage begins in Taiwan, Aladdin could reroute hundreds of billions of dollars globally before a human even sees the alert. In fact, roughly 7% of all assets under management globally are indirectly influenced by Aladdin's decisions. That's not just one AI system, that's planet-scale financial influence. But it gets even weirder. Some hedge funds now operate black box trading algorithms that evolve autonomously. One firm, Numerai, literally trains its AI models using a global competition, where anonymous data scientists compete to make the most profitable predictions. The winning algorithms are combined, retrained, and deployed, without the human creators ever knowing what companies they're even investing in. And here's the kicker. Several recent market flash crashes have been traced back not to human panic, but to AI feedback loops, where one trading bot misread a signal, prompting another to counter-trade it, then a third to respond again, creating a domino effect that wiped billions in minutes. No fraud, no hackers, just machine logic spiraling faster than anyone could intervene. This isn't just finance. Supermarket chains, real estate firms, and logistics networks are starting to outsource key pricing decisions, inventory control, and even land acquisitions to machine learning models trained on years of economic activity. These systems do not explain their choices. They just outperform their human predecessors. So here's the chilling theory that economists are now whispering: what if the next financial crisis doesn't come from bad decisions, but from flawless ones made too fast for us to understand? Machines are quietly rewriting human laws. What happens when the people who enforce the law aren't people anymore? Across multiple countries, governments are now testing or deploying autonomous legal enforcement systems, a phrase that barely existed 5 years ago. And while most of the public still associates AI with chatbots or robots that serve coffee, the reality is that some of the most critical decisions in society, like who gets fined, who gets detained, and even who gets early parole, are already being made or heavily influenced by algorithms. Let's start with Singapore, a country known for high-tech governance. It uses an AI-based surveillance system called Vega to monitor public behavior. Vega doesn't just observe, it flags suspicious conduct in real time based on body movement, gait, and crowd patterns, even when no law is technically being broken. The system cross-references live footage with behavioral models trained on years of data and alerts human officers only when it detects potential violations. In other words, machines are deciding which humans deserve scrutiny before a single word is spoken. In the United States, predictive policing is already active in cities like Los Angeles and Chicago. Algorithms analyze crime reports, social media activity, and even arrest patterns to forecast where crime will happen next. While defenders claim this improves patrol efficiency, critics have documented cases where poor neighborhoods are repeatedly flagged, not because of new crime, but because the algorithm learned that past arrests made them statistically likely zones. It creates a feedback loop where being watched increases the chance of being arrested, which justifies more surveillance. Here's where it gets chilling. In China, the city of Hangzhou trialed a program where a robotic judge, powered by AI, reviewed civil court cases without a human judge present. The system used natural language processing to interpret claims, scan for inconsistencies, and recommend rulings. In its pilot phase, over 90% of judgments were issued autonomously in cases like loan defaults, parking disputes, and small claims. Citizens received their court decisions via SMS. No gavel, no courtroom, no human face. And then there's the UK, where a tool called HART, Harm Assessment Risk Tool, is used to determine the likelihood that a suspect will reoffend. Based on the result, it helps decide whether to release a person or keep them in custody. One test showed it classified high-risk individuals correctly only 32% of the time, yet it remained in use. Here's the shocking part. Almost none of these systems are governed by the same legal checks that apply to human law enforcement. There is no legal precedent for challenging a machine's judgment, no constitutional safeguard against a biased algorithm, and no formal process to audit how these machines learn or evolve. Your job wasn't replaced, it was absorbed. You didn't lose your job, it just quietly disappeared task by task while you were still doing it.
piped the output of the AI model to say, whatever your next line of thought is, like dump it to this text file so we just know what you're thinking.
While the headlines scream about humanoid robots and AI judges, what's actually happening across the global workforce is far more subtle and far more permanent. The transformation isn't about replacing workers. It's about replacing the tasks workers perform, slicing away human input so gradually that most people never realize the change has already happened. Take customer service. In 2019, the majority of support tickets in banking, telecom, and e-commerce still required human agents. By 2025, AI models trained on billions of chat logs are handling over 90% of first-line customer service, not just answering queries, but resolving them entirely. And it's not just basic questions. Modern AI agents can now handle banking fraud reports, insurance claims, and refund disputes with regulatory compliance levels higher than junior employees. You don't speak to someone, you speak to something. In the legal industry, law firms are already using platforms like Harvey AI, trained on vast databases of legal documents, case law, and statutes. Instead of drafting from scratch, junior lawyers now review documents that Harvey already prepared. The AI predicts the outcome of lawsuits with 78% accuracy based on jurisdiction, presiding judge, and motion history. Translation: it doesn't just write legal briefs, it tells you if they'll work. Accounting and finance? Tools like Pilot and Finaloop are running entire bookkeeping operations using machine learning models that learn from each client's spending patterns. In the past, a small business might have hired a bookkeeper once a week. Now the AI watches every transaction in real time, flags inconsistencies, files taxes, and even recommends cost-saving strategies by analyzing similar businesses in its network. Even creative industries aren't safe. AI art tools now generate promotional graphics, logos, and even product designs in seconds, while copywriting AIs produce web ads, SEO articles, and email campaigns at industrial scale. One ad agency in London reportedly laid off over 60% of their junior staff after switching to generative models for pitch decks and client proposals. Quietly, efficiently. Here's the unsettling twist. This isn't a wave, it's a sponge. Automation doesn't crash into your job and destroy it, it absorbs it, one small responsibility at a time, until your role still exists on paper. But most of what gave it value is already gone. The new class divide is already here. Forget the old lines between rich and poor, educated and uneducated, white-collar and blue-collar. A new divide is forming, and it's not about income, it's about access to control over the algorithms that now shape reality. In this emerging world, there are only two types of people: those who are managed by algorithms and those who manage the algorithms themselves. Here's what that means. An Uber driver today doesn't just work for a company, he works for an algorithm. His pay, hours, and even the routes he's allowed to take are decided not by a boss, but by real-time pricing models, behavioral tracking, and machine learning systems constantly adjusting for profit and efficiency. He doesn't negotiate, he's nudged. The algorithm may offer him a slightly higher fare to go to a neighborhood he normally avoids. It may penalize him for declining a few jobs in a row. It gamifies his labor, but it never lets him in on the rules. The same is now true for warehouse workers, delivery riders, cleaners, and even remote customer service agents. In many cases, their daily tasks are dictated by AI-generated workflows, performance benchmarks, and surveillance dashboards that monitor productivity down to the second. Some warehouses even assign tasks using augmented reality headsets, where workers simply follow glowing arrows and complete orders without ever talking to a manager. Meanwhile, a small elite group is rising, not because they work harder, but because they understand how to control or train the systems that now make decisions. These are prompt engineers, AI model trainers, systems architects, and algorithmic ethicists. People who don't just use the software, they shape it. They know how to train a model to respond a certain way. They can fine-tune a supply chain's AI to favor certain outcomes. In a world run by code, they write the code behind the code. And this shift is happening globally. In Kenya, gig workers label training data for massive AI models used by Western tech companies, yet most never interact with the end product. In Brazil, call center agents read pre-written scripts generated by language models trained in Silicon Valley. In Southeast Asia, e-commerce pickers wear biometric wristbands that track movement efficiency. Meanwhile, a small group in San Francisco, London, or Shenzhen tweaks the logic those systems follow. This is the unspoken truth. The real power in the 21st century isn't money. It's the ability to train or tweak the algorithm that tells everyone else what to do. When AI starts creating new realities, not just replacing old ones. We've talked about automation taking over labor, law, infrastructure, and decision-making. But here's the part no one is truly ready for. AI isn't just managing the world we know, it's starting to build worlds we never imagined, literally. Let's start with a chilling fact. AI models can now generate realistic, fully interactive digital humans that speak, emote, and respond to complex questions in real time. Companies like Synthesia, Hour One, and Sora are already licensing out digital spokespersons to corporations who no longer want to hire human actors or presenters. These avatars speak any language, never age, never sue for copyright, and can deliver convincing training videos, news segments, or product pitches with zero retakes. Some businesses have started replacing entire departments, HR onboarding, sales explainer videos, even CEO updates, with these digital clones. But it goes deeper. In South Korea, one of the largest TV news stations, MBN, aired news segments with AI anchors so convincing that casual viewers didn't notice the difference. These digital newsreaders are trained on real anchors' expressions, mannerisms, and tone. They work 24/7 and can deliver breaking news with zero lag. Some stations have begun script-generating AI pipelines, where the news is written, voiced, and delivered by machine, all without a human touching a keystroke. Then there's the rise of AI-generated influencers. Models like Lil Miquela on Instagram or Imma in Japan already have millions of followers, despite being entirely fictional. Now, with diffusion models like Midjourney 6 and Sora generating photorealistic video and AI-generated voice cloning reaching human indistinguishability, new influencers are being designed from scratch, optimized for engagement, relatability, and psychological targeting. You could be following an influencer, feeling inspired, laughing, or crying, without knowing that no real person exists behind the account. Some of these accounts are even being used for political influence, soft propaganda, and subtle product placement campaigns. Even architecture and city planning are shifting. AI programs now generate entire virtual city blueprints, optimizing everything from energy flow to traffic patterns to social dynamics. Some of these models are now informing real-life city development, like Saudi Arabia's NEOM, or projects in China's smart cities, where AI-generated layouts are trialed in real construction. When AI doesn't just learn the rules, it starts making them. Up to this point, AI has been absorbing tasks, replacing decisions, and managing environments. But now we're entering a far more unsettling phase, where artificial intelligence begins to generate the frameworks that govern us. Not just laws or schedules, but the very rules of logic, language, and priority. Let's start with something deceptively simple: language models modifying policy language in real time. In late 2024, multiple governments began trialing AI to redraft regulatory documents, not just for clarity, but for speed. One example: the UK's Financial Conduct Authority used an LLM, large language model, to rewrite entire sections of outdated consumer lending law, aligning it automatically with GDPR, digital banking standards, and even ESG policies. Here's the eerie part. The AI flagged contradictions no legal analyst had ever spotted. It suggested resolutions, and many of those became law without ever being written by a human hand. Now imagine that scaled to global trade treaties. That's what's happening inside multilateral AI policy engines being tested by institutions like the OECD and World Bank. These systems simulate the outcome of thousands of clause combinations in trade agreements, projecting ripple effects decades ahead. Governments are starting to trust these simulations to guide policy, even when no single analyst can understand every variable it considered. But it gets even stranger. Some LLM-based platforms are now deployed to generate entire educational curricula. In Brazil, one trial used an AI to create custom lesson plans for remote rural schools. The system scanned each community's internet speed, average student literacy, and access to devices, then auto-generated a full semester's curriculum, complete with grading rubrics. When the trial ended, Teachers reported better student retention than traditional lesson planning. The AI had tailored everything, without needing a human teacher to explain the regional context. And here's the next leap. AI systems writing code that governs AI systems. OpenAI, Google DeepMind, and Anthropic are already exploring recursive self-improvement, models that write new optimizers, generate test frameworks, or propose architectural changes to the very models that built them. If that sounds like a feedback loop, that's because it is. A controlled one, for now. So here's the truly uncomfortable question being asked in private labs and quiet ethics meetings. If machines are writing the rules that govern humans, and then improving the systems that write those rules, what role is actually left for us? Don't forget to click the card on screen and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.